As we established previously, this is a PPP grammar lesson plan for an adult class. It could be used for an online, virtual class, or for a traditional face-to-face class. The first stage of the lesson is the warmer. This stage is only 5 minutes long. A lead-in to any class should be short but engaging. In the lesson above, the teacher shows or uploads images of people doing daily activities. The teacher uses the images to try and elicit their names and any other related language. At the end of the warmer, the teacher will ask the class, "What time do you normally?" Then name the actions from the images. This will help to get learners thinking about the lesson ahead and help them to recycle knowledge they already know on the topic. The main interactions are teacher to students and students to teacher. The second stage of the lesson is the presentation, which will last around 10 minutes. The teacher presents the past continuous grammar to the learners by writing the sentences in bold on the whiteboard. The teacher will highlight the grammatical structure of the past continuous, then drill the pronunciation of each sentence as a class. If the teacher feels that the class is capable, they might choose to have the learners work out the grammar structure just from looking at the example sentences. Make sure to explain the affirmative, negative, and question forms of the grammar, as well as its use. The main aim of this stage is simply to present the grammatical structure and draw learners' attention to its form and use. There will be mostly teacher to student interaction during this stage, with a little student to teacher interaction where possible. The next stage of the lesson is the practice stage, which will last around 20 minutes. The teacher starts by handing out material 1. This is a gap-fill activity whose aim is to give learners controlled practice of the grammar. If the lesson is offline, material 1 can be printed and given as a handout. If the lesson is online, the teacher can show it on the whiteboard for everyone to see, and even send copies to each learner individually. Learners must work alone to complete the activity by filling in the gaps. This will help them practice using the past continuous grammar. When they are finished, learners can compare their answers with a partner, chatting in breakout rooms if it's an online class, and finally, coming back together as a class and doing group feedback. The main interactions begin with teacher to student when the task is being explained, then students to teacher if any questions are asked, then finally, students to students. The next part of the lesson is the production, which will last around 25 minutes. The main aim of this section is to give students freer practice of the target language, and to allow them to use the language creatively. The teacher sets up the task by suggesting, "What were you doing at?" before students go off in pairs, or in breakout rooms. The teacher will hand out, or send, material 2. The students will then work together to write down 5 different times in which things could happen during the day. When they have finished, they need to ask their partner, "What were you doing at each time they wrote down?" Their partner will answer, and the first learner will write down what they say. When this has finished, learners can switch partners and try to find someone who was doing similar activities to them at similar times. The main aim is for learners to have as much practice using the grammar as possible, and it's less important whether they find a learner with the same activity or not. The interactions at this stage should predominantly be student to student. The final stage is the filler. This is an extra stage that doesn't have to be used, but can if required. It can be considered a backup to fall back on if learners finish the lesson content quickly and need something more to do. As a class, the teacher can give them sentence starters like, "What were you doing at 1 p.m.?" The teacher could ask one learner in particular, and the class could guess what they were doing. Overall, this is a nice, simple lesson plan that is appropriate for pre-intermediate, adult learners. The grammar is presented well, there is an opportunity for controlled practice, then the learners can use the language more freely at the end.